The July 16th, 2020 meeting of the Metro Sports Authority is called to order. It is the opinion of the chair and the staff that the items on today's agenda constitute essential business of this body and that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Are there any objections? Our meeting is being live streamed on nashville.gov, Comcast Channel 3, AT&T Channel 99, and Google TV Channel 3. Pursuant to the provisions of the Metro Code, please take notice that decisions of the Metro Sports Authority Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that the time and procedural requirements are met. At this time, we will run through a roll call just to know what board members are participating. And for each vote, we'll do this as well, and we'll go through it alphabetically. Director Bim. Margaret, are you present?
Present.
Vice Chair Bender.
Present.
Colonel Deering.
Present.
Director Duncan. We're noting Director Duncan is absent. Director Farner.
I am present, thank you.
Director Gill.
Here.
Director Glassmeyer.
Present.
Director Harrison. Don't see that Frank's on. That changes. Someone let me know. I'm noting him as absent. Director Hogan.
Here.
Director McGee. Absent. Director Page. I see that Anna Page is on. Anna, can you unmute yourself and let us know you're present?
And she just muted herself. She needs to look like she's to unmute her phone or whatever I'm gonna unmute her, but she needs to unmute her phone or whatever else she's using on her computer because we can't hear her.
Anna, let us know when you're back on, and then Secretary Nguyen. Emmett, are you on?
Here.
Excellent. Okay. Moving on. So on Friday, you received the minutes from our June 25th meeting. Are there any questions or comments regarding the minutes? Is there a motion to approve?
I move approval, Madam Chair.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and properly seconded. And since we're doing this electronically, we'll go through the roll call vote again. I'm sorry, guys, but apparently it's the best way to do this. Director Bim, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Bender?
Aye.
Colonel Deering?
Aye.
Director Farner?
Aye. Aye.
Director Gill,
Approve.
Chairman Glassmeyer,
Approve.
Councilman Harrison, oh, I'm sorry, I've noted he's absent. Director Hogan,
Approved.
Council Lady Page, present and not voting. Secretary Lynn, the minutes are approved by majority. At this time, we will hear from Monica Falknatson, our Executive Director, to give her Executive Director's report. Monica.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being on the call today. You have the agenda was, I think Alicia will put it back on the screen, but the agenda is before you. This morning, the authority will take up all the action items from its November 1st, 2018 meeting. This includes the minutes from the September 20th, 2018 meeting, a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between the Sports Authority, Powers Management, the Nashville Sports Council, and the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament. It includes the 2018 CMA Parking Settlement Statement, a resolution authorizing the expenditure of funds for TSU signage at Nissan Stadium, and finally, a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction management agreement between the Sports Authority and joint venture Mortensen Messer. The authority will also consider approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of several agreements related to the MLS stadium that you see before you. And then finally, we have representatives from our venues on the call, and the board will have an opportunity to ask any facility-related questions that they may have. Are there any questions about the agenda? So we obviously have a lot to cover. I do want to report on one item. Last week, construction began on our new office space. We are still in Lindsley Hall, but we'll be moving to another area of the building that was previously occupied by General Services ADA office. General Services is overseeing construction. We are grateful for the additional space, which we desperately need, and we hope to move in shortly after Labor Day, and we'll continue to update you on the progress as we move through this. Are there any questions? If not, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Monica. Please let the record reflect that Councilman Harrison has joined. I see he's on the call now as well. All right, so that brings us to consideration of the November 1st, 2018 agenda items. Laura Fox, Metro Legal Associate Law Director, is going to kick off this portion of our meeting. Laura?
Good morning. My name is Laura Fox, and I'm an attorney for Metro for 20 years now, and I'm glad to be speaking with you. I used to go to your meetings many years ago, and but Margaret, of course, is doing a wonderful job now. I am speaking to you about the items that were on the November 1st, 2018 meeting because there was a lawsuit that was filed by some individuals and by the Nashville flea market vendors that challenged the your approval of the Mortensen Messer contract. I think this organization would be fairly frank that their goal is they don't think that this soccer stadium should be at the fairgrounds. And so this was one of the ways that they wished to slow things down or stop the process. So they filed a lawsuit. It had many parts to it, but by the time we got to trial, the only thing that was left to try was whether or not the Sports Authority had an open meetings violation on November 1st, 2018. And they said that 48 hours notice was all that was given and that that was insufficient for such a large contract. We provided evidence at trial that there were other forms of notice that were given earlier, but the judge found that in essence, the most of the notice was just given 48 hours ahead, and that was insufficient for such a expensive contract. So the judge said that the remedy is not, you don't have to rebid it. The remedy that the judge recommended was that you have a redo of the vote on Mortensen Messer and that contract, and that it would be not just a rubber stamp kind of vote, but that you should make have a discussion of whether it's appropriate to enter into this contract. And of course, in order to do that, you are going to need some information from folks who were involved in the procurement process, such as the purchasing agent and Mr. Gobble. And so I think that they are on the call and able to provide you with that information. But in essence, we're here today because the November 1st meeting, the judge decided that there was not enough public notice given. So with that, I ask that you go ahead and consider those things.
Thank you, Laura. Are there any questions for Laura before we start through the November 1st, 2018 meeting items?
Melvin Gill, I do not have a question for her, but I would like for you to, when you go through the documents, to, if you would, put them on the screen or reference them so that I can look at what you're referring to. It's a lot of information for me, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed by it. So if you would do that, I would appreciate it. It would help me follow you.
Thank you, Melvin. And Alicia is standing by and is prepared to make sure we reference the appropriate documents as we roll through. So it looks like she's on top of things and is got the meeting minutes from September 20th, 2018 up on the screen. Those were part of the November 1st meeting, and we sent those out to the board last week. Are there any questions or comments regarding the September 20th, 2018 minutes? The chair would entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Motion and properly seconded. Director Bim?
Aye.
Vice Chair Bender? Kathy Bender?
Aye.
Yes. Don Deering?
Aye.
Glenn Farner?
Chair Lady,
Yes.
I wasn't at that meeting, so I guess point of order, I can't attest to whether these are true, but I'm supportive of them. I just don't know if it's appropriate to abstain or to vote. What maybe some guidance would be helpful.
Margaret Darby, can you chime in?
I can, and the makeup of the board has changed a lot since 2018, and we are right now just trying to ratify the actions that were taken in 2018. And so I think that it's okay for new board members to simply vote on the approval of the minutes as they are written.
Okay, then I don't have anything. Aye.
Melvin Gill?
Aye.
John Glassmeyer?
Aye.
Frank Harrison?
Aye.
Dan Hogan?
Aye.
Anna Page? I think Anna's on mute. Director Wynn? Emmett?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Next up, we have consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Sports Authority, Howard's Management, Nashville Sports Council.
Excuse me, Chairwoman Atkins. This is
Yes.
Aaron Steve.
Oh, hi, Aaron. Welcome.
Yeah, I chimed in about 5 minutes or ish minutes late, but I just wanted the record to say that I was here.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. I'll make sure that we acknowledge you on this next minute. My apologies.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Melvin Gill again. Would you reference, give me a reference number for that that document that you're getting ready to look at now?
Yes, Alicia, can you let us know in the SharePoint which item this is?
This is number 4, the resolution.
So we are considering, while board members have a chance to find the document. Alicia has it pulled up on the screen, but consideration of a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Sports Authority, Howard's Management, Nashville Sports Council, Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament. Monica will walk us through this agreement, and I believe Scott Ramsey, president of the Nashville Sports Council, is also available on the call to answer any questions. Monica?
Okay, thank you. So back in 2013, the SEC and the Nashville Sports Council finalized a deal to bring 9 men's basketball tournaments to Bridgestone Arena between 2015 and 2025. The agreement also included the women's SEC tournaments, which was held in 2018, and then we have another one in 2022. As part of that deal, Powers Management agreed to waive the facility rental, and the city agreed to reimburse Powers Management for expenses related to staffing and labor, hospitality, some decor. The resolution and agreement before you today gives Nashville the opportunity to host the SEC men's basketball tournament through 2035. Scott Ramsey is the president of the Sports Council, and he'll come up and briefly to talk about history and economic impact. But first, I want to speak to the big change that occurred since the board approved this in 2018. And that's the fact that we're now operating under a new Bridgestone Arena lease agreement. So under the old agreement, the city funded certain SEC tournament expenses from the Arena Revenue Fund. The fund was replenished with seat user fees and sales tax collections, and it was managed by Metro Finance. This fund, even for our new members, is going to be familiar because it's the fund that we're currently using to pay our project managers for soccer. It's also how we assisted General Services with the Ford Ice Center Bellevue closeout. So now we have a new lease and a new arena account where the sales tax, seat user fees, and capital improvement fees are deposited. And so under this new agreement, we've prioritized how the funds that flow into this arena account are spent. So the first priority is obligations of the Sports Authority. And that includes things like Ford Ice Center debt service, funding for our new finance manager and other Sports Authority operational expenses. And it also includes the SEC tournament expenses.
And Monica, this document, is it 4A in the list of documents on SharePoint? Just so members have a chance to pull that up.
Yes, Kim, it is.
Can you,
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Monica, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you, Alicia. The allocations for tournament expenses have already been made. And so if you're looking at the document on the screen, you'll see a line item that says, I think it says MSA commitments, and that's the SEC tournament number. So you'll see that in 2020, that allocation was approximately $840,000. So what's happened is we're no longer dealing with unknowns or variables. The allocations have already been made, and that's extremely helpful. Also under this agreement, the Nashville Conventions and Visitors Corporation contributes $100,000 per year to help us reimburse Powers Management for expenses. And in 2029, that amount will increase to $150,000 annually. So that's the change. I would like for Scott to come up briefly and talk a little more about the history, why this is good for the city and economic impact.
Thanks, Monica. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Chairman Atkins and this board. I've been fortunate to be here for 25 years now in the Nashville community, and I think this agreement is one of the agreements that we've secured an event long-term for our city that really underscores the cooperation and collaboration between our public sector, our private sector, our professional tenants, our venues, our hospitality community, and we're certainly very appreciative of being able to go out and attract these type of events to our city. Just a little background, prior to what Monica mentioned in 2013, the Southeastern Conference had occasionally bid out their basketball tournaments, both men's and women's. So every 3 or 4 years, we were in a bidding process against all the cities in the Southeast that were interested in hosting the tournament. We were able to host 7 men's tournaments specific to this particular bid between 1998 when the arena opened in 2007. That equated to almost 120 million economic impact. But periodically we were having to rebid on these. We were able to secure a long-term deal, as Monica indicated, in 2013. Those events went so well that the Southeastern Conference came back in 2017 and decided to bid out their men's basketball tournament to have an anchor city rather than rotate around the Southeast. Nashville won that bid contingent upon meeting the certain bid requirements. We were bidding against Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa, St. Louis, Memphis, Dallas, several cities that were very interested in the event. Those bid requirements, as Monica outlaid, was obviously local expenses to be paid by the local entity. The Powers Management and the Predators have waived rent. Thank you to the Sports Authority considering to underwrite the staffing and labor costs with a cap on it each year, and then the CVC and the authority sharing the costs of the hospitality, which is not only the official party but most importantly about 600 to 700 media that cover the event for the week. The event averages around 185 to 190,000 attendees. We've sold out every session to every season, with the exception when they added a Wednesday night event, which we're able to do a lot of community outreach and bring a lot of folks to the tournament that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to get tickets. Every game's on national television. So this 16 to 18 year agreement will yield somewhere in $330 to $340 million in economic impact if we continue on the trend of averaging around 20 million a year. It also delivers about 500 hours of national television coverage through SEC Network, ESPN, and ABC down the road. And it obviously fills up our arena with 15 games and 8 sessions over the course of the week in middle of March. It was a great opportunity for us to secure the event long term, not have to rebid, and we certainly appreciate the consideration of the authority to help us secure this event by underwriting the required costs.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions for Scott by the board? At this time, we would entertain a motion to approve the resolution before you. And again, it's a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement between the Sports Authority, Powers Management, Nashville Sports Council, and the Nashville Convention and Visitors Corporation for the SEC Men's Basketball Tournament.
Don Deering, I second.
Well, Don, I think we need a motion. So if you'll make the motion, then
I'd make a motion that we approve the contract as rendered.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I will second.
We have a motion for the resolution and properly seconded. This time we will go through the vote. Margaret Bim?
Madam Chair, I recuse myself because I am a member of the Executive Committee and Board of the Nashville Sports Authority, Council, sorry, Nashville Sports Council. Sorry. I think you did a great presentation.
We will let the record reflect such. Vice Chair Bender? Don Deering has already seconded, so we'll go on to Lynn Parner.
Chair Lady, I have a question, if that's okay. Yes. So we're actually voting on the resolution to authorize you as the chair to execute that agreement, or are we approving the exact agreement, or both? I just want to make sure I understand.
Sorry, I had to get back over to the screen. You're technically voting to approve the resolution, which authorizes the execution of the contract. So you're essentially, your vote does both. And this resolution also makes the contract retroactive back to the date back to November, or the date it was first executed.
Okay, aye.
Alvin Gill? Director Gill, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chairman Glassmeyer?
Aye.
Councilman Harrison?
Yes.
Director Hogan?
Aye.
Aaron McGee?
Aye.
Council Lady Anna Page? I think Anna's having technical difficulties. Secretary Wynn?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, we will consider approval of the 2018 CMA parking settlement statement. Monica, I think we'll start this one off, and Janine Kaufman, Titan CFO, and Brasher Burbank of PMC, our parking contractor, are both available to answer any questions to the board. Monica?
Thank you. So back in 2012, the Sports Authority entered into a license agreement with CMA, where in exchange for us allowing them to use Nissan Stadium, they divide and pay the net revenue for parking. So under the agreement, 25% comes to the Sports Authority, 25% goes to Cumberland Stadium Inc., and the CMA retains 50%. The 2018 CMA parking settlement provided by the Titans is on the screen in front of you. You'll see that the numbers were very similar to 2017, with us netting about $400 more in 2018. The total net parking in 2018 was $146,161.18. 25%, or $36,540.29, came to the Sports Authority. All parking revenue is pledged to paying off the stadium bonds. And I would also add that in 2019, our share for CMA parking was $41,327, so it continued to increase.
Monica, what item number is that?
I think it's item 5.
That is 5.
Bob, Flynn, is there anything you'd like to add? Or I'm sorry, Janine or Brasher?
I don't really have anything to add, Monica.
Yeah, same with me, Monica. It's pretty straightforward, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for that overview. At this time, we would entertain a motion to consider approval of the 2018 CMA parking settlement statement. Is there a motion for approval by the board member?
So moved.
This is Director Bender. I move approval.
We have an echo. Can someone mute their phone?
Yeah, this is Kevin. I've transferred post roles to Amber Quisenberry, so she'll be here to help and mute people as needed. So I'm jumping off the call now. Amber's in.
Amber, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I think if the vice chair would be so inclined to turn your motion into
I will second the motion, yes. Yes.
And Amber, can you fix the echo? Okay, Margaret Bim, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Director Bender is also an aye since she made the motion. Colonel Deering?
Aye.
Director Farner?
Aye.
Director Gill?
Aye.
Director Glassmeyer?
Aye.
Director Hogan?
Aye.
Director McGee? Director Page? Director Nguyen?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on, I meant to reference in the last agenda item regarding the basketball tournament. I would also like to be listed as abstaining since I also serve as a board member of the Nashville Sports Council. So if the minutes for this meeting could reflect as such. Yes.
You didn't take my vote.
I'm sorry. On which one, Melvin?
This is Frank Harrison.
Oh, Harrison, I'm sorry. It's I think originally I had that you were absent. I apologize, and so overlooked your vote. How would you like to vote on the CMA parking?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. And I had your vote on the SEC agreement too, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the TSU signage at Nissan Stadium. Monica?
In September of 2018, the Titans shared that they had received a request from TSU for interior signage at Nissan Stadium. Under our agreement with TSU, the university is entitled to signage in number one, a permanent, prominent location, and number two, with lettering large enough to be readable from most points in the stadium area. So as lessors, we are obligated to provide the signage. The signage should not be in a location that is considered a revenue generator for the Titans. So it took us a while to come up with a location that both TSU and the Titans both found acceptable. We had multiple meetings with TSU President Dr. Glover and her team, and eventually we landed on the area where the Titans fixed sponsor signage is. TSU asked to have 2 signs on the east side and 2 signs on the west side of the stadium. The Titans agreed to split the cost with us. With one caveat, they wanted to work with TSU on an agreement that acknowledged, number one, the signage locations aren't currently revenue generators, but do have the potential to be. And 2, if there was a future need to make adjustments to the location, the Titans would find a new prominent location and cover all expenses associated with the change. So staff requested that the authority approve the purchase of the signs for TSU to be shared equally with the Titans and funded from the Sports Authority's operating budget. The total cost was $24,640. Our budget was able to absorb the cost of our portion. The signs were installed and unveiled at the 2019 John Merritt Classic. Bob, Flynn, would you like to add anything to that?
recapped it nicely. I think you've covered everything. They're up and they're backlit, and TSU is very pleased with it, and we are happy with the arrangement as well. So unless anybody's got any questions, I don't think I need to add much.
Thank you, Bob Flynn, VP of Facilities for the Titans. Are there any other questions by the board regarding this agenda item?
This is Don Deering, and we're voting on something that's already taken place, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any additional questions, comments?
Chair?
Yes.
This is Glenn Farner. My question is, we're voting on the resolution to approve the chair to sign this agreement. I mean, essentially it's already correct.
This is Margaret Darby. I can answer that. And this is a resolution that simply is authorizing the use of funds. There was no separate agreement that that needed to take place in this instance because there are already agreements in place regarding the signage.
Oh, I was looking at the signage agreement behind it, but I guess that's already in place. Is that? I'm confused.
That was an agreement between TSU and the Titans.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Just trying to get caught up here.
No worries. Thank you for the questions. Are any further comments or questions by the board? If not, we're ready for a vote on the TSU signage expenditure. Director Bim?
I vote aye.
Vice Chair Bender? Vice Chair Bender, how do you vote?
Vice Chair Bender, how do you vote?
Aye.
Colonel Deering?
Colonel Deering?
Don Deering, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Farner?
Aye.
Director Gill?
Yes.
Chairman Glassmeyer?
Yes.
Councilman Harrison?
Aye.
Director Hogan?
Aye.
Director McGee?
Aye.
Director Page? Secretary Wynn?
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Now before us, we have consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction management agreement between the Sports Authority and joint venture Mortensen Messer Construction. Tom Cross, Deputy Director of Law with Metro, is on our call and will walk the board through the deal points of the agreement shortly. But first—
This is tab 7.
I'm sorry?
I just wanted to know this is tab 7 in the board's materials.
Thank you. I couldn't understand you. We're on tab 7 on SharePoint. Metro Purchasing Agent Michelle Lane and Senior Procurement Official Terry Ray are also on the call. They will review the solicitation evaluation process and to speak as to the selection of the team. After Michelle finishes, then I'd like to ask Project Manager Ron Gobble to speak as to how Mortensen Messer is doing in their role as construction manager. But if Michelle, if you would start us off, that would be most helpful.
Thank you so much, Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to discuss this with you again. Just to give you all some quick details, some high points related to the solicitation, in June of 2018, the Procurement Department released RFQ 1035670, which was for the construction management for a Major League Soccer stadium. That solicitation closed on July 17 of 2018. There were 4 offers that were submitted in response to that solicitation. The evaluation committee met. It was comprised of a variety of different folks, including Ms. Bach-Knotson with the Sports Authority, Laura Womack at the Fair Board, Mary Cavara, Ron Gobble, Jim Pashofsky, Ron Sally, Don Valiant, and Kellen DeCourtney. The last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those folks, Mr. Gobble through Mr. DeCourtney, served as non-voting technical advisors to that evaluation committee, providing them with the information necessary, to assist in their making a recommendation to the purchasing agent. The review of those offers resulted in the need to have interviews, which occurred in August of 2018 on the 8th, with a subsequent intent to award being issued on the 15th. As that solicitation was issued, it specifically laid out what Metro's objective was at that time, which was to solicit proposals from construction managers to perform pre-construction services and potentially construction management services for this new Major League Soccer stadium. And it specified that it would be located on a parcel of land on the fairgrounds in Nashville. So what I'd like to do is to take just a moment, and Ms. Ray led this effort, and allow her the opportunity to talk through any relevant points related to the evaluation criteria as they were established in the solicitation, sought to understand the best offers submitted based upon qualifications and experience, management and work plan, a diversity plan, as well as cost. So many of you will be familiar with this process being more of a best value approach to procurement. We are interested in cost. It is not the only evaluation criteria. We want to make sure that we're getting the best service for the price. So cost is considered, but among 3 other evaluation criteria. So with that, and just as a point of clarification, those offers were, again, submitted by Barton Mallow, the Mortensen Messer construction team, PCL Construction and DF Chase, and the Skanska AECOM Hunt team. So Ms. Ray, if there are any points related to the evaluation itself, which led to a determination of the Mortensen Messer group being determined the best evaluated, please chime in.
Thank you, Michelle. In part of the evaluation, there were numerous strengths that the Morton Messer team had related mostly around extensive experience with the venue experience, including current and to be completed MLS stadium experience. Their proposal also had extensive Nashville project experience, including several projects that were ongoing currently along with past ones. They also provided a very detailed workforce development plan, and they had strengths involving joint ventures around the capacity of sports-related facilities. Again, as all 3 except for 1 had a very strong diversity plan as that they presented. One of the weaknesses that was demonstrated as part of the Morton Messer team was that they had limited joint venture experience together. So that means that Morton Messer themselves had limited experience as it related to the sports facilities. They hadn't had a facility like that where they put together a joint venture as Morton Messer. But together, Morton themselves or Messer themselves had been and had experience in that kind of type project and capacity before. So that really allowed them to stand out compared to others.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions for procurement at this time? We can always jump back.
I have a question, Madam Chair. When this came before the board before, it came after we had considered the contract, but delayed approving it based on the anticipation that a protest would be filed. So could procurement talk about that process? What happened after that board meeting in which we delayed action on it to allow the protest process to occur?
May I be recognized?
Please,
okay.
Michelle.
Yes, that is true. There was a protest that was filed related to this. There was anticipation that a protest would be forthcoming, and it was. It was filed by Barton Mallow Company. Barton Mallow Company protested the purchasing agent's intent to award, and the basis of their protest, or their protest claim, related to the methodology that was used to calculate the points distribution for the cost proposal portion of the offer. They challenged that that methodology was incorrect. They further articulated that the anticipated project cost of work basis was incorrectly included in those calculations for determining the points distribution, therefore to the second, third, and fourth offers in relation to the maximum points. And as we proceeded through that protest process, we made clear in the protest hearing, and the subsequent purchasing agent's determination laid out all of these facts, that the methodology for evaluating submitted cost proposals was one that, the city had determined was in its best interest to do, which is allowed by the procurement code and methodology, and is consistent with best practice. And the information regarding how we were going to manage that process was also fully disclosed to all potential offers in the solicitation. As we went through this process, what we learned was that Barton Mallow Company disagreed with this evaluation methodology, largely because it was not the same methodology that they had seen and used in other solicitations. And of course, the city reserves the right to be able to determine which methodology works in its best interest, considering the particular factors of the solicitation before it at that time. And so the purchasing agent's determination was that, there was nothing presented in the protest that suggested that, we had behaved or acted in this process incorrectly or inconsistently with, state procurement law, with Metro's procurement laws, or with the solicitation itself. And all of those are, factors that we need to be considering, that I need to be considering when hearing a protest, which is, have we complied with state law? Have we complied with our own local law regarding procurement? And did we execute this process consistent with the way that we disclosed, or with what we disclosed to those offers in the solicitation? And my determination on that was that yes, we had proceeded consistent with all of those. So on the 30th of August in 2018, I issued a protest determination to all of the offers, laying out all of these details, and we did not receive a subsequent protest appeal related thereto.
And Ms. Lane, I remember that we were concerned. We saw the closeness, of the scoring, obviously, wanted the particular proposers to be heard. There wasn't a protest. You made a determination. There was an opportunity to appeal, but there was no appeal, right?
That is correct.
And so when you came back to the board for the subsequent vote, you relayed this whole process out to us before we took the vote to approve this contract, as I recall.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for going through that again, Ms.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you, Director Bem. Are there any other questions for procurement?
Yes, this is Melvin Gill. I noted that Terry mentioned one of the firms not having being deficient in its response to the diversity business plan. I have a very keen interest and an affinity for participation by DBEs, MWBEs. I will start with the fact that when the stadium was first constructed, Bridgestone and the Coliseum or Nissan Stadium, contractors were awarded large bonuses for achieving minority participation. And that minority participation was achieved by hiring white women-owned firms that were some 400, 500, 600 miles from Nashville. I have a concern for what Metro can do, what purchasing can do, what the authority can do to assure compliance with opportunities for local companies and individuals and training. I don't know if there's anything in place for such actions by the by Metro. Can you explain to me what is in the contract documents regarding assurance that MWBEs, DBEs, local community individuals and businesses will be employed?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Gill. As you know, I too also have a passion for ensuring that we have the inclusion, of minority and women-owned businesses, which is why on this specific solicitation, we looked at our efforts to maximize participation through the solicitation of offers approach related to diversity inclusion via a diversity plan, which was worth 15 points of the total evaluation. I will note that all of the offers, honestly, provided really good detail about their diversity approach. So much so that we were looking at them under a microscope because each offer had very good approaches, strategic approaches to maximizing diversity. The difference broke down to the diversity plan, which I see there on the screen for Skanska USA and AECOM Hunt team, where they received only 12.5 out of the 15 points. I'd further like to note that, the importance of the diversity plan, and I recall us having some pointed conversations with Ms. Bem about this during one of the previous Sports Authority meetings. It really boiled down to whose diversity plan had everything that we knew was important related to this project for all the reasons that you noted. And as it turned out, Skanska was actually ahead in the evaluation until we got to a review of the diversity plan. When you looked, which was scored in advance, and it was scored by the Business Assistance Office, and their 12.5 resulted in their score being listed at the 96.65 rather than a potential 99.15, which you all could see based on what's on the screen would have turned the evaluation and the award of the contract. So based upon that, what we wanted to know in that diversity plan is all of the things that you're talking about. We don't want you to just give us some information right now to make us feel good and award, but we want to know very detailed things that you're going to do. How are you going to manage outreach? How are you going to provide subcontractor technical assistance? What kinds of efforts will you make to mentor some of your subs so that this project does not put them out of business? What will you do to ensure prompt payment? Because we know that not all, but many small businesses rely very heavily on constant cash flow. And we want to know what you're going to do to help them make sure that they're able to have that cash flow based upon performance of work. And then we wanted to know what they were going to do related to monitoring and reporting of that participation. And we see that where, Skanska fell off and where their diversity plan was not as robust as it could have been. And we had these conversations. We sat down with the Skanska group just because, they requested the sit down, but also because we know that Skanska tends to bid in our market, and we wanted to prepare them to have a better approach to doing business with Metro and understanding our commitment to diversity. And they fell off really on their insurance of prompt payment, their commitment to prompt payment, and then helping us understand the numbers of days within which they would be making payments to their disadvantaged businesses after receipt of acceptable invoices. And that's really where they fell off. What we have in place now is a robust business development and outreach effort. Much of that has, we've learned from experience, but we've also learned from our most recent disparity study, which outlines some very key details for where our processes were deficient. And we have worked to improve those processes. We've included a number of additional training opportunities for vendors and providing one-on-one contact with those vendors. Now, from a compliance perspective, which is really the heart of your question, Mr. Christopher Wood in our Business Assistance Office is here to talk with you about what that compliance effort looks like to date on this specific project. But I will tell you that we implemented, and we've had implemented now for about 10 years, what I would define as robust contract compliance procedures. And we are not simply looking at what you propose, but we are requesting and requiring from prime contractors that they provide us with detailed information that supports the achievement of the percentages that they've proposed. So on this project, I think it was 25 or 30% DBE required. Christopher can correct me when I turn it over to him, but that means you propose this amount of participation. We are now interested in understanding exactly how you achieve that. That means submission of canceled checks, proof of payment, detailed information in the form of subcontracts. So we don't want to be in a position, especially on any project, but certainly one this size, where an offeror can come in and say, yep, I'm going to get 25% participation, and then we don't have a sound process for confirming that they've done that. I see as purchasing agent the inclusion of this diversity portion in any solicitation, just like any other criteria in the solicitation. I tell people I'm an old schooler. I rely on the model procurement code, and I understand that the hallmarks of public procurement are transparency, integrity, fairness, and public trust. And if we are not able to, with all of our criteria, including the diversity plans, send the message to our to the public that we've done, all that we could to ensure performance, including the diversity plan, then I think that affects public trust. So we've implemented those procedures, and if the chair would allow, I would certainly turn it over to Mr. Wood to just talk a little bit about that and how it's looking to date.
Please, Christopher.
Thank you, Michelle. Excuse me, before you begin, I would like to, first let me say that I don't think I would, I know Michelle. I have full confidence in her ethical and professional abilities and can appreciate what she has done and is doing. My consideration is with reference to, and not necessarily the scoring of the diversity plan, but with this contract that was executed, what Messer is offering to do, what has it done with outreach efforts? Has it involved community organizations? Are there add-on contracts or additional contracts or agreements with community organizations for Messer to work directly, hand in hand with them, to accomplish some of the goals that have been sought and discussed in this entire process? So that's some of what I am after.
I think, Christopher, I think you can talk a little bit about the outreach information. I think you've got a lot of detail about that.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Again, this is Christopher Wood, Director of the Business Assistance Office. And for this project, I'm monitoring compliance for that. And so what we have in order to ensure compliance is we use the B2G Now compliance software. So that's just one key piece of it, which to echo what Michelle said, the PROM is responsible for entering in those payments to all the disadvantaged businesses that are part of this project. The requirement, it was a 20%, Michelle, requirement, DB requirement for this. To date, there have been 2 packages that have been released. Those were both released in the spring. The Morton Messer Group was in contact with me during the outreach that was conducted with this. There was outreach that was published, and I have to pull it up, but there was publications where the outreach was advertised. The meetings were held virtually, and in part of the scope of work that was in those packages, they did reach out to the Business Assistance Office, and if there were, we kind of helped them if there were any particular questions about firms that Morton Messer's prime subs were trying to utilize. And so we're tracking this down to the tier 2 subs. And to date, from the 2 packages that have been released, and package 1 had a scope work of earthwork and site utilities, the utilization that has been presented is at 30%. So that is higher than what the overall project goal is. For scope 2, it is mechanical and plumbing. And we have the utilization that has been submitted is at 30%. And so how we're monitoring that for compliance is once we are getting that information in from Morton Messer, as the compliance officer on this, we are, researching to make sure that the companies that are listed to be utilized are actually minority and or women-owned businesses, as well as SBEs, because for that DBE participation, it does combine minority, women, and small businesses.
Thank you. May I add one other item?
Yes.
Please.
I think it's important to note too that, as the Mortensen Messer Group have expressed in their diversity plan that, their goal is really to aid DBEs in this process. And I think it's really key to Mr. Gill's point about perhaps previous projects in the city. But their plan was such that, they would aid DBE firms in their individual growth and development and really prepare them for continued success through capacity building and thereby creating an opportunity for them really to pursue additional projects in the Nashville area and surrounding areas. And I think that that's key because it speaks to some of the issues that we've experienced on previous projects. I will note also that, the Mortensen Messer Group has been working or has retained Ms. Carol Greenlee, previously Carol Crawley, with the Business Resource Group, really to assist them with program planning and implementation, and to assist them as well with education and technical assistance for their disadvantaged business firms. And Carol just brings a wealth of experience and knowledge doing this work. It really is helpful to us to have a team. And when I say a team, that may be fun, no pun intended, but a contracting team that finds it important enough to retain someone on the inside to assist them with ensuring that their program planning and implementation, as well as education and technical assistance related to their inclusion of SMWBEs, is as robust as it can be. And Carol brings that experience. So that's a benefit to them in terms of assisting them and making sure that they meet those points that Mr. Gill laid out.
Also, if I may, let me say, I know Carol. I knew her father. I'm also interested in agreements that Messer may have had or may have with community organizations. It has come to my attention that the community benefits board or something like that has an agreement with Messer. That agreement has certain conditions that's pertinent to involvement or inclusion of individuals and companies in the Nashville communities. Is there such an agreement? How can you assure, if there is such an agreement, that that agreement is complied with Messer?
Director Gill, I think it would be appropriate for maybe perhaps some representatives from Mortensen Messer to speak specific to your questions.
Sure,
I believe we have a couple of representatives on the call, and so I'd ask you to please state your name and title and who you represent if you would like to address the question of the board. Thank you.
Is someone speaking?
I think so. They're probably trying to unmute their phone. I believe we have Michael Carter on. Michael?
Yes. Good morning. I do think it's more appropriate that the Mortensen Messer people speak to this issue. Alan or Tom Lamke, who are on the call, I think are probably having some technical issues.
Thank you. We'll give them just a second to figure out how to respond electronically. We all know it's a little challenging. So we'll be patient for a couple of minutes for the appropriate representative to address the board.
And while we're waiting on them, I would like to know which community organizations that they have been in communication with or have a working agreement with to meet some of the requirements of these of the Metro Nashville government's contract, procurement contract.
Are you able to hear us?
Now we can. Thank you.
All right. Okay. You want to address it? You want me to? Yeah. I can address it.
Please address, give us your title and who you represent. Thank you.
Alan, you were going to address it, Alan?
I'm sorry. We're having a difficulty understanding you. You can maybe speak closer to the microphone.
Yeah, good morning, Madam Chairwoman Atkins, and good morning to all of the directors. This is Alan Troshinsky, representing the Mortensen Messer joint venture and in association with Pinnacle Construction and Business Resources Group. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the board today. Addressing our inclusion plan, I might remind the directors that we had a very robust inclusion plan in our proposal, and that was actually amended into our contract. So our proposal has become our commitment. And it is multifaceted, and it is touched on a number of items that you all have just discussed, including a plan for business participation, as well as labor participation on the project. And we do have a 30% DBE commitment in our plan. And as we have progressed over the last year in massaging that plan, we do have on file with the Business Assistance Office a roadmap to succeed, to achieve, if not exceed, that 30% DBE participation. And as we've heard just now, we've just begun the procurement process. And we're coming out of the gate with very good success. And all points are indicating that we will be hitting that expectation of 30%, if not exceeding. And then on the labor inclusion particularly, we are very focused on the inclusion of people of color and female craft workers on the project. And we do have a part of our plan that addresses that. And it is narrated in our contract. It flows down to our subcontractors. It does include leveraging probably a dozen community-based organizations that source and train labor, from which we have just begun communicating with as we're drawing very close to starting the work on the project. And we have initially reached out and advised of several months forward-looking of activities on the project and the resources that we'll need, that our subcontractors will be looking for. And this is all meant to prepare the community to respond in a positive way to put people to work, and particularly focusing on local labor and local people of color and female as well. And particularly sourcing craft workers that are currently unemployed or underemployed. And working with community-based organizations to make sure that those folks that are sourced are trained and are able to succeed when they come through our gates. I'll also note that our inclusion plan also addresses many of the factors already articulated, but I'll underscore prompt payment and relaxed retention terms. You know, those are very important to small businesses. And I'll also note that our inclusion plan addresses a very transparent process of frequent reporting. We intend to be submitting reports each month to the authority, and those will address our real-time progress on both business and craft labor participation on the project in real time. So we won't go 6 or 12 months and have surprises. We'll be talking about the successes and challenges of our plan each month and how we'll be working towards, again, meeting and if not exceeding those expectations that are part of our contract.
We touched on the community.
Thank you, Alan.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I would be interested in knowing what local communities, community organizations has some working relationship, some agreement with any of the entities involved with the soccer stadium. Can someone name those community organizations for me?
Madam Chair, this is Mary Kabara. May I address the question?
Yes, please, Mary. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Mary Kabara on behalf of Nashville Soccer Holdings. It's possible there may be some confusion that Nashville Soccer Holdings entered into a community benefits agreement, I think it was back in late August or early September of 2018, related solely to the mixed-use development at the fairgrounds, which is adjacent to the stadium. In addition to certain requirements related to the mixed-use construction, there are also commitments that we collectively have made with respect to once the stadium is built, and in terms of how we operate it, and with certain services that we'll be hiring for different needs of the stadium, as well as the team working with youth in the metro area and a variety of other matters there. But that does not, it's not tied to this particular stadium contract. And I hope that clarifies matters.
So there is no agreement with any community organizations by any entity involved with the stadium development.
May I speak, Chair?
Michelle, yes, please.
Thank you so much. I will note that the part of the purpose of the diversity plan is to assist Metro in understanding how the contracted entity would meet the target that we placed on the project and how they will achieve on the various elements of the diversity plan that were laid out in the solicitation. In the response submitted by the Mortensen-Messer Group, there was a specific section related to the collaboration with, to their collaboration with community resources. And, you know, their commitment there was that early in the process that they would be looking to develop relationships, certainly with Metro on an ongoing basis. And we've heard from Mr. Wood that they've been doing that. Also with the Airport Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, the Nashville Black Chamber of Commerce, I'm sorry, the Tennessee Latin American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber, the Urban League, the Minority Business Center, TSU's Department of Engineering, and the National AGC and ABC chapters, along with Stand Up Nashville. So part of the consideration there was certainly to look at who those community resources that they'd be working with would be. And I expect that once we really get into the meat of this project and we have more packages in preparation for release, we would be able to see some of those partnerships more manifest.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay. Then one additional question here is, if you find that Messer is not in compliance, then Michelle, what could be done?
If they are not in compliance with the commitment expressed in their diversity plan, and the way that we would determine that, Mr. Wood talked a little bit about this, is we would see a disconnect between what they proposed by the way of percentage and use and compliance with program and what they've actually achieved. Then we would be putting them on notice that they are non-compliant with the contract in essence, because all of these documents have been, as the Mortensen-Messer team noted, incorporated into their contract by reference. And so in essence, this diversity approach and their commitment to the target become a part of their contract. What we like to do, Mr. Gill, is to watch these projects over time. You know, we don't wait until the end and say, oh no, you didn't meet it. We're requiring the submission of certain things at periodic points in time. And the Mortensen-Messer Group noted the intention to have frequent reporting of the information so that we all understand, we're all on the same page on an ongoing basis about what the level of achievement is. And if we find it falling deficient, we let them know, and then we have a sit down to talk about what we need to do to get it where it should be. Because at the end of the day, we've had some of these conversations already with the team, and it's not a secret. We don't want to see any project, certainly not one of this magnitude, fall short on its commitment to diversity, inclusion, and what it has proposed and committed for the community. So we want to be looking at it on an ongoing basis, such that when we get to the end of the project, everybody knows what's going on. The worst case scenario is to have a full-scale non-compliance issue that we would then have, or that I would then have to consider as it relates to execution or breach of the contract. That's not something that we want to have happen. So we're going to be monitoring it on an ongoing basis, finding the deficiencies, addressing the deficiencies as they come up, and they do come up, when you have a lot of moving parts like you'll have on this project. But it sounds as though we've got a commitment from our contractor to work to make sure that they meet what they committed.
Thank you, Michelle. I think at this time it'd be appropriate for Tom Cross, Deputy Law Director, to walk us through the deal points of the agreement, and then we can continue with further questions, certainly after Tom has a ability to address the board. Tom?
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you. This is Tom Cross of Metro Legal. If I might start off by addressing one of Director Gill's points and Michelle Lane's as well. The DBE participation goal actually is an express term in the construction management agreement. And this is a construction management agreement rather than a more typical construction contract. There's more than one way to deliver a construction project. One might be to have an architect design the entire thing and then submit those plans to the contracting community for bids. You get a fixed price that way. It tends to be a little slower, and it also tends to be fraught with potential for change orders and the like if there are errors in the plans or other reasons why change orders have to be issued. So a construction management agreement differs in that you engage the construction manager at the beginning to work with the project designer so that constructability issues can be ferreted out along the way. The construction manager is paid a fixed fee for the pre-construction services, and then when the plans are at a sufficient level of completeness, the construction manager submits to the owner a guaranteed maximum price proposal. And then there's typically some negotiation that goes on over what that number should be and the conditions that underlie it. If the owner agrees to the proposal or some version of it, then there's a change order issued that converts the project into a more or less standard construction project. That's the format that was used here. Mortensen Messer was engaged as a construction manager. They've been working with the project designer over the last year or so on the project plans, constructability, and if I'm not mistaken, they are just at the point of delivering a guaranteed maximum price proposal. They may, in fact, already have done so this week. At some point, a proposed contract amendment establishing the guaranteed maximum price will be back before this board for consideration. But once that is done, then this will be a more standard construction project, and the contract has all of the standard provisions that you would expect to find about changes. This authority will have to approve any changes of any significance, and how subcontractors are awarded, and how the project is closed out and requirements for insurance and bonds and the like. I'll be happy to take any questions, but that's sort of the essence of it.
Are there questions for Tom? I do want to note too that on Tuesday, the board received a submission of documents from attorney Jim Roberts. And yesterday you received a response from Laura Fox in response to those submission. And if there are any questions for Metro Legal regarding that exchange, that would also be appropriate at this time. So I'll open it up for questions.
Chair Atkins,
yes.
If you would, I have some questions, not really related directly to procurement, but kind of where we are now and kind of how we go forward. So, and I'm trying to get caught up on all this. It's only my second meeting, so.
You put the gun running.
So,
yes, please go through your questions.
so forgive me if this is stuff that has already been over, but if you could point me, in the right direction, who to ask what. Most of it is from kind of procurement forward and what's before us now, and I think that would be, kind of laid out everything from the agenda clarification to, but what the order was from the chancellor, what we exactly are charged to do, and kind of how we go, and then certainly questions about the agreement itself. So if I might, the first is about the agenda. So I think I just want clarification. Again, I've had a number of questions about that. So walk me through, so from the time that the project was originally procured or awarded or what have it, what followed at that point? Was there an agreement? Was there, who's to answer, who can answer that, Monica?
Madam Chair, this is Tom Cross, and I think I can answer that question.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Director, the project, because we weren't aware that there had been a public meetings issue until much later. This authority approved this contract once before, and we proceeded under the view that the project ought to go forward. So the Mortensen Messer was engaged, the project designer was engaged, and they have been working in good faith and moving the project along. And you can ask Ron Gobble, who is the authority's overseer for the project, about his view on exactly where things stand now. But things have not stopped. The designs are largely complete, I believe. The construction manager either has or soon will deliver a proposal for a guaranteed maximum price. And if this authority reapproves this agreement, we'll proceed apace.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to reiterate Director Gill's commitment to diversity as well. I do think that is an incredibly important part of the thing, and I'm glad to see Procurement's not just emphasis on that in the process, but the continued interest there as well. Appreciate that. The other is, so that agreement was, or that agreement, that award was made, or intent, and then that came, then an agreement was negotiated, and then that came before the board, and that agreement was what was voted on in November 1st, and thus, I guess the judge or the chancellor voided that action. Is that?
Again, Tom Cross, the chancellor determined that there had been an open meetings violation. Under state law, the meetings of just about every public body have to be open to the public. And in this case, the violation had to do with insufficient notice having been given. I think notice was given electronically, but we try to give, at least a week, if not more, and less was given as to this particular meeting in November of 2018. The authority did vote in favor of approving the agreement at the time, and everybody proceeded on the assumption that there had been no problem, of course. And it was only when the chancellor ordered that the contract be reconsidered that it was put back on your agenda.
And this is Laura Fox from Metro Legal. I'll just add to Tom's remarks that this lawsuit was not even filed until September of 2019. So it was almost a year after the Sports Authority approved the contract, and it was 6 months after everybody else had signed off on the contract. So the work had begun. Of course, once the contract was signed, this lawsuit was filed, and then we didn't get to the trial until June of 2020.
And so here's the reason I guess I'm starting to, I'm asking is kind of what, before I get into exactly what she ordered us to consider and go forward, what, so we approved the contract. This board approved the contract. I think that's well documented, and that's the contract we've been working under all of this time. Now our agenda. Well, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, I guess when this was posted, I looked and we had a previous contract and a restated contract, and I was looking at those, and then now it seems there's been a change in the agenda somewhat. I don't know exactly, I didn't see it for a couple of days, but there's been a change to where that restated agreement is now gone. And well, I don't know whether or not that is replaced by well, I don't know if it's replaced, but now we're voting on, as I understand, a authorization to the chair to execute that rather than the agreement itself. Is that, and I'm just wondering what changed between what we voted, what this board voted on September or November 1st and today. What?
Again, Tom Cross, I don't know that there's a substantive difference. The request to the authority would be to approve the agreement and authorize the chair to execute it. And that might have been articulated slightly differently, but that's still the what's before the authority.
Director Farner, Glenn, if I can speak to that real briefly, because I noticed that on the SharePoint site, it was the same agreement. So there was a duplicate. There was not a previous and a revised contract. It was the same contract that was up. We realized that, and so we took one of them down, but there's not been a change to the agreement.
Thanks, Monica, and I appreciate that explanation that essentially, and so I guess that's what I was clarifying. So essentially, there's really, I guess I'm asking, there's really not a difference in authorizing, like the chair is not, I mean, so what we're voting on is the agreement and then authorizing the chair to sign that agreement. That agreement wouldn't somehow or another be changed after it's approved. Or as you said earlier, those changes would come back before the authority, correct?
I agree with everything you just said.
I just want to make sure I understand. I think Director Bim can attest. I asked a lot of questions. I just want to make sure I understand.
Since you said my name, Glenn, I just want you to know that I really do appreciate these questions, and always feel free to ask them. I think they've been good questions.
Thank you. Maybe you can. I guess my next question is about Chancellor Lyle's order, and I know that the council and Ms. Fox who sent out a communication on the 13th, kind of addressing that or addressing that, and I want to make sure that I understand exactly, like, initially I heard words redo, and I think I even may have read it in there, or reaffirm, as I read, or maybe one of the news articles. I just want to make sure we're not necessarily redoing, right? I mean, we're as she said it, or as you put in your memo, a perfunctory crystallization of its earlier action. What rather than must be new and substantial reconsideration. So what would that mean?
This is Laura Fox. That language comes from the case law. The courts say that when there is an open meetings action, that doesn't mean that you can never do whatever was done and invalidly. They just say you have to go back and do it the right way. So for this meeting, of course, a lot of notice has been given, and they say the purpose of the Open Meetings Act is so that the public understands why decisions are made. So they don't want to just say, okay, everybody agree to vote the same on November 18th items. Okay, boom, it's done. It doesn't have any meaning if it's just done in a perfunctory way. So I actually think that the discussion you're having, asking questions about the judge's order, making sure that you are satisfied with the Mortensen-Messer contract, these are the kinds of deliberations that judges look at to decide was was the November 1 action readopted in the correct way where the public can tell that the Sports Authority actually thought about this thing? Or was it something where they just said, oh, the judge said we did it wrong? Okay, well, let's just put it back on the agenda and just give it a check mark, and that'll be good enough. So it can't be perfunctory. It doesn't have to be 8 hours. And so somewhere in between there, you know, showing that you are actually paying attention to what comes before you is what the courts are interested in. So the public knows that these things are being carefully considered.
Thank you.
I still,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Glenn?
Go ahead, Mr. Gill.
Yes, I still would like for it to be noted that I have a very keen interest in this contract getting it right. If Nashville is the it city, then Nashville should be the it leader in terms of compliance with MWBE participation in the utilization of community organizations, residents of the Metropolitan Nashville and Davidson County government. Now, if we find that somewhere in the process this is not happening, what authority does the board have to step in to say or do something about that?
If I might address that, Madam Chair, I mentioned a few minutes ago that the DBE participation goal is a provision of the construction contract. The authority as the owner can enforce that. If the contractor fails to use good faith efforts to achieve those goals, that's a breach of the contract that could be enforced.
Okay, and I understand. And one of the first things I said, I preferenced my statements with the fact that the Bridgestone Arena was built by a contractor who was given, if I'm not mistaken, a $500,000 bonus for achieving minority participation, MWBE participation. And it did so with white women-owned businesses that were 400, 500, 600 miles from Nashville. So I am interested in how we might know what's happening with or who the companies are, the businesses are that are being used and how they are being used, and that there are no pass-throughs, those kinds of things. How do we know that?
They have to make, and you heard from Michelle Lane and the procurement office on how they keep track of things like that. And I would just observe that the arena and Nissan Stadium were built before Metro had the division of our procurement office that keeps track of things like that. But now we have a whole office with really, really good and well-qualified professionals who insist on and do receive regular submissions from the contractors that we work with to make sure that they do honor their commitments and how they're going about doing it. And Michelle may want to follow up on that.
I have every confidence in the procurement office, Michelle Lane and her office. I'm just wanting to know, how do we get assurances? That's all. And if we have to do that through her office, then that's what we have to do. But once the horse is out of the barn, how do you stop it?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, this is Michael Carter. Can I speak to Commissioner Gill's comments?
Yes, and I believe I also heard maybe from Michelle as well, but.
If I could just say quickly, Mr. Yes. Carter, I hope you don't mind. We are happy to provide quarterly reports to the board via Ms. Falk-Knudsen so that you understand what that status is.
Are monthly reports possible?
They are possible. I'm not certain that you'll be able to see sufficient movement or trend data from month to month, but usually you are able to see it quarterly. But if the monthly report, I defer certainly to Mr. Wood because I'm speaking on his behalf. He'd be providing those reports, but I think that we're able to do that.
Yeah, because when he was speaking, I thought he said that information was available monthly, and it sounds like the will of this body would be to make sure we're reviewing that in a timely fashion.
Madam Chair, this is Christopher Wood. So monthly is when the reporting is done. Quarterly, I do believe will be better to present information to the board, because within a month there may not be any utilization. There may not be any spend with MWBs or SBEs. So quarterly, I think will give you a better idea of where we are trending towards this project. But if the board does request monthly information, I can provide you what we have monthly.
Well, my preference would be monthly. It would be a better way of keeping up with it.
This is Ron Gobble, Madam Chair.
Yes, Ron, and I apologize. I meant to acknowledge you earlier to speak as our project manager. I appreciate you chiming in.
That's quite all right. And respond to Director Gill's point. His interest is in not only minority participation, but local minority participation. And we all think that's important. We all agree with that assumption. And I have been on several calls where Mortenson are talking to, Mortenson Messer is talking to subcontractors who still very large subcontracts. And they're emphasizing this issue inside the subcontractor's role, not only in hiring subs to the subcontractors, but also in hiring craft workers and others that represent the minority community. But we can do a monthly report that points to the direction everything is going, and then I think BAO can confirm it. But on a monthly basis, we can deal with that.
That would be helpful. I think it's the will of this body.
Sure, we'll be happy to do that. And then we can also, the next month or so is going to really be critical. So at the next report, we'll try to bring you up to speed on this issue. And so if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the good news is that I think everybody is taking it seriously. And I'm very much aware of what has happened in the history where you get a woman-owned business that's in another state that kind of goes around and does these big projects. And this is a very, very large project, but there's a lot of work to be done. And we're at that process.
At this time, I'd like to also recognize Mike Carter with Pinnacle Construction. I think Mike would like to be recognized. Mike, can you chime in? Okay, well, we'll see if he's available to join in. Are there other questions from the board at this time for Ron or Tom's team?
Madam Chair, this is Alan Troshinsky. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Alan. Thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of the construction team, I might add that as far as commitment, we do appreciate the concerns of the board when it comes to genuine participation, genuine diversity, inclusion amongst the project, subcontracting team, the craft labor represented on the project. And, if the monthly reporting that I spoke about earlier will be available, we, members of the construction team, will be happy to meet with board members on a monthly basis or more frequently as they may deem appropriate to ensure that everybody is aware in real time what's occurring on the project. We certainly do not want to create a situation where there are surprises. But I just want to emphasize that we have a plan for success. We're taking these goals very seriously. And we are here to be held accountable. Myself and Steve Jones can make ourselves available at any time to address any of the concerns going forward. And we welcome those conversations because we are confident we're going to have a good story going forward. Just based on the initial contracting that we discussed here a little while ago, just coming out of the chute, we're trending in the right direction. And there's nothing on the radar that says we are not going to do anything but succeed.
Madam Chair, can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is Michael Carter.
Hi, Michael.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
But I want to speak to Commissioner Gill's comments. As a person of color, who, along with my partner, Daryl Freeman, we've been in business since 2007. So collectively, we have probably impacted this community in terms of employing and engaging people to the tune of over $100 million. And so Commissioner Gill, we hear you as a team, I hear you as an individual, and I share with you that along with, again, Mortensen Messer, our CEO of our construction team, plus myself, we're participating in all these interviews as well as conversations. And the first agenda item that typically we're having with these prime subcontractors is the issue of diversity. And to the degree there is a basis of not meeting certain goals or they're needing help, the role that Carol Greenlee plays is one to make sure they have that basis of support, whether it's workforce development or whether it's a matter of, again, DBE support. We've been in business since 2007, and I work with a number of large majority firms. Messer and Pinnacle have had a business relationship for 10 years. And like Messer, Mortensen, who we just developed a relationship with, the corporate culture is very similar to ours in that it is really about the community good. And I'm almost 70, so no one has to pay me to work saying favorable things about people that have a business relationship. I'll speak frank and I'll speak very direct. They're great teaming partners. These are people who, in fact, when they make a commitment, they stand by the commitment. So whenever there's an issue that I've experienced, where again, there's a conversation about collaboration, there's a conversation about the need to be engaging, they're there. And so it is a matter of providing that proof source, through whether it's through Metro purchasing, whether it's through our group. It is important that you be comfortable that that this team is going to be held accountable for delivering on their commitments. I told the mayor when this in fact was approved, and we worked very hard to work with city council as well as Mayor Briley, that personally, I'm making a commitment to make sure that this is going to be seen through in terms of our commitment to our community. So there's ongoing conversations on a daily basis that I know I have with Carol Greenlee about, again, someone who in fact is looking for people in the community to look at a job opportunity or a training opportunity. So more than happy at any point in time to look at meeting with you. I would include Carol. I would include some other folks from the Messer team who are local, so that you really can have a sense of exactly what's transpired, what conversations are taking place, community groups, as well as in terms of MBEs and DBEs.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate your commitment and for stepping up and making those comments clear. At this time, I do want to also ask Ron Gobble to also kind of give us more background on the work performance to date from quality of work of Mortensen Messer. I've meant to address that as well, but yes, there's a question.
Yes, before you get to Ron, I am interested. First of all, I've met Mike Carter once, and of course lived in his home city for 3 years, his home city of Detroit. So I have some interest in what he knows about the Black community, minority communities. I am interested in knowing what relationship his company has with Nashville groups. Is it Stand Up Nashville? Is it what do you have any type of an agreement with these groups that will help to assure them that you will be working in their best interests in the progress of this project? In addition, let me say something about the goals that have been mentioned. A 30% goal, a 20% goal, those are good. But I would be more impressed if you did not meet those goals, but made a genuine effort to have local businesses, individuals from Nashville who are qualified and able to accomplish any of the work that's required. That's what would impress me most. Now, if you could tell me something about the community organizations that you have any type of verbal or contractual agreement with, I would appreciate that.
This is Margaret Bim, and I hate to interrupt, but I had told Monica that I would have to be off this call at 12:30. So I think this has been a great discussion. And so I regret that I'm not going to be able to vote, but I did want to just say that I appreciate the presentation today, and I am in support of this contract, and just wanted to make sure that I won't be here, Madam Chair, when you call out my name. So just
Thank you, Dr. Bim.
Off the call. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Chair Atkins, this is William.
To Commissioner Gill. Commissioner Gill, I'm more than willing to meet with you at any point in time to talk about our relationships with the groups that we have. We've had ongoing relationships with or done business with. And so I'll look at trying to secure your contact information and let's meet face to face.
Director Farnham.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I want to continue some of my information that I need. So I guess Ms. Fox, back to where my last question. I appreciate you answering and giving us a description of what the Chancellor's discussion and that what we're doing here attributes to that, because about the transparency, and I really do want us to give some thoughtful consideration to all of these things, and guidance in what we're charged to do, and to everyone to know and understand, and us to discuss that. In your, Chair Atkins had mentioned at the top of this discussion, after the procurement and after Mr. Cross gave his, some information that was sent out over the last few days by Mr. Dominy and or Mr. Roberts and others, but particularly, and I read through that, but particularly your memo on the 15th that addressed a number of those issues. I think they prompted me to request some questions about that. And I think that procurement kind of walked us through how, your first address is how that those bids the procurement was done and how those bids were done. She also mentioned and I couldn't get it. It also mentioned like 2 committees that were set up. One was, she said the latter 5, I think that was the, if I remember correctly, the architect and some of the technical advisors. But there was also, kind of a scoring committee as well, right? And that's what you raise up in your issue. Can you kind of walk me through how that was done in the procurement, not the procurement necessarily itself, but how that committee operated? And I think you raise a good point in your memo here.
Well, the evaluation committee is the committee that scores the proposals. That evaluation committee doesn't make any decisions that are binding. The information that they come up with is handed over to the procurement agent, Michelle Lane, and then she can tell you what she does with that information. I think she evaluates it to see if she agrees with what the committee is recommending. And so I can let her talk about that. But as far as the composition of the evaluation committee, I think that she has that authority to ask people to help her to get the best. And I think that in something that is as technical as this with construction, I think that it's typical that that outside experts are asked to help with that. But Michelle, maybe she can talk about what she does once she receives the evaluation committee's input.
Yes, and I want to first apologize if I was not as clear as I could have been. There was a singular committee, but it was comprised of a combination of both voting and non-voting technical members. So there was only the one evaluation committee from a procurement perspective. Typically, the way that those evaluation committees operate, there's a recommendation of the evaluation committees. I approve the composition of the evaluation committees based upon the specific roles of those individuals. They then review the responses and they make a recommendation, as Laura noted to me. I then review the evaluation summary, that justification along with the scoring to ensure that I agree that the scoring has been done consistent with the evaluation, what was laid out in the evaluation criteria and the solicitation, and that I believe that it's appropriate in Metro's best interests. Once I, agree or not, there are occasions when, I say, look, I'm not as clear about this element of the evaluation, and I will remand the information that was submitted to me, the evaluation summary, back to that evaluation committee and ask for a review, another review based upon specific points. But once it is approved, once I've reviewed it and I've determined that it is, appropriate given what was in the solicitation, then I will issue an intent to award based upon that recommendation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So Ms. Fox, in that, you had talked about, I guess there was some contention that not the procurement, but the way that in those information that we got recently, I guess that was somewhat contentious or in some way described that particularly, and again, not making judgment one way or the other, but I think it's something that we should talk about since it's brought up, is the selection. And I think Ms. Lane accurately described the importance of diversity, and certainly that the evaluation scores were not just based on price, but price as one consideration. And that the selection or the, I guess, the selection or the scoring by that evaluation committee, in fact, did not select or score the lowest priced contractor. In fact, it scored the highest of the three. I guess one was eliminated, but and I guess there was about 7 million, 160 million, 165 million, and then 167 million in that contract. And so, you know, it would beg the question that how, you know, how that a selection committee evaluating the scores, again, not just on price, how the interests of the taxpayers would align exactly with the companies or the private companies' interests serving on that committee as well. Particularly, and as if I understand, if I read some of the documents correctly, that, and again, I'm gonna ask some questions about this because I don't have clarity. I guess it was raised in a previous meeting and others that I guess at some point the company's interests or the team's interests, you know, their responsibility would be over a certain price, and then the public's commitment would be in another certain price. So I'm trying to understand how, you know, that the participation or the scoring, if you will, of the evaluation committee, you know, how that could have been completely, if not unintentionally or anything else, how even the appearance could be in the public's interest, particularly in the $7 million more. Does that make sense?
Director.
So I'm just trying to understand.
I know you addressed that question to Ms. Fox, but I'd like to take a shot at it first, with your permission and that of the chair.
Yes.
On a public-private partnership project where both parties are there may be more than two, but we're using this one as an example, both Metro and another party are going to have to invest money in the project. It's typical that both are going to be involved in evaluating proposals submitted, whether price is a factor or not. Here it was one of several factors that you've heard listed, but it's typical and perfectly reasonable that a party that's going to have money invested in the project has a say in who is selected to carry out the project. And I will say one of the considerations that's important for this authority is the long-term operating and maintenance costs for the facility. You know, as you probably know all too well, you know, we're constantly asked for approval for capital improvements at the Nissan Stadium, and we would like to be able to minimize that to the extent that we can on this project. And so we have a shared interest in seeing that you know, contractors who are considered for work like this have a good reputation for, you know, doing quality work and also working well with owners and operators to make sure that the costs of operation are not going to be excessive. So since Metro on this project will be responsible for capital improvements and the team will be responsible for operating costs, it's important that both parties feel comfortable that the product they're going to get is going to minimize those costs to the extent possible.
Madam Chair, it's Mary Cavara, and may I also add a clarifying comment?
Yes, please, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to clarify one item, that under this particular arrangement, at the end of the day, the team is responsible for 100% of the construction cost. The funding mechanism includes funds that are provided by the team, as well as revenue bonds that are issued by the Sports Authority. However, and especially with the recently negotiated term sheet, the team is responsible for repayment of all those of the bond payments. Part of the payments will include a seat tax as well as redirected sales tax, which are consistent with other professional venues. And as you all know, the cost of the stadium is greater than what was here. And right now, the team is 100% responsible for any of the cost overruns. And at the time this particular document was negotiated, Metro was going to contribute $25 million that was going to be used for a combination of the stadium and for site infrastructure. And right now, that entire $25 million is required for site infrastructure. So essentially, the team is responsible for 100% of the cost, and so, you know, there's, for all the reasons that Tom Cross has articulated, we believe that, you know, this makes a lot of sense, but it's not that Metro or the taxpayers are really paying for the cost of the stadium. This is very different than any of the other professional venues constructed in Nashville.
Thank you, Mary, for that context. Director Farnard, do you have additional questions?
I do. Thank you. Speaking of, and I asked somebody earlier, what is the cost of the stadium? We talk about, you know, what the public is responsible for, because I've read, you know, obviously I'm sitting here looking at the page, and we had a $167 million award. I look at the agreement, we've got $192 million contract. What's the difference there? I mean, what constitutes the difference?
Madam Chair, it's Mary Kavara again, and I think I can clarify this.
Please, Mary. Thank you.
Currently, we are estimating it, which we've shared with the board before, the total cost of the stadium to be around $335 million. That includes many factors other than just the direct construction costs managed by the construction manager, of which this contract is just one of those components. At the time that this contract was prepared, the stadium had not yet been designed. And so with the passage of time and as we've gone through things, we've learned more, and the team has agreed to absorb any of the additional cost. As someone had mentioned earlier, we're getting very close to having a GMP, or the guaranteed maximum price, and there will be an amendment that comes before the board, and that amendment will relate solely to this contract. And as we're working through that, we believe that we should be ready to bring it forward to this board in August. And so there's just different numbers because of the different points in time that information was prepared and the nature of all of the work together. But basically, the estimated cost of the stadium has remained the same since approximately March of 2019, which in this current environment is not very easy to do, but we're working on that very hard.
Thank you, Mary.
So we don't have a guaranteed maximum price, so we don't know exactly what. And let me ask a question, I guess. The guaranteed maximum price, define that. Is that the price of the complete project, or is that the guaranteed maximum price for the public's portion, or, you know, or is that together the project itself?
Let me, if I may, Madam Chair, take a shot at that one. The guaranteed maximum price is a not to exceed price. We all hope that they will come in below that. Under the contract, the construction manager is entitled to be paid the cost of the work plus a fee. And of course, there could be change orders. Again, those would have to come back before the authority. The guaranteed price is the not to exceed price, and there is some hope that we will come in under that. And that is just for the construction of the stadium.
Yeah. And that would be $192 million.
It's going to be a different number than that for the reasons that Ms. Guerra articulated. Metro's contribution, however, is capped at the net proceeds from the issuance of $225 million in revenue bonds, and then separately some money for infrastructure. But for purposes of this agreement, Metro's limit for both construction and design is net proceeds of 225 million in bonds. So it'll be something less than that. The team is responsible for everything above that.
Okay, and you see a reason I asked that question is because I see, I'm getting feedback, I don't know.
Amber, can you adjust the feedback?
Tom, one of the reasons I asked that question.
Amber, there you go. I think it's fixed now.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure who was causing it, so I was just.
It's Glenn Farner.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes. Madam Chair, just as a point of order, this is Director Bender. I really, really appreciate our new board members, and I'm especially grateful for Director Farmer and Director Gill, because although we vetted this in depth, the conversation has been very enlightening, and I've continued to learn from the conversation. But in an effort to move forward, could we possibly entertain a motion and get a motion and a second, and then open back up for discussion so we can move this forward?
Are you making the motion?
I would like to make a motion that we proceed with the approval from the former meeting that we are in the midst of discussing right now. So yes.
Okay, we have a.
For the team leads.
The vice chair is second. Amber, can you help us out with the feedback?
Yeah, I keep muting people. There's got to be someone that might have two devices that are running right now. It might be Kathy Bender. She might have two devices that are plugged into the meeting.
Okay, Kathy, can you put yourself on mute for a moment?
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Okay, and just procedurally where we are, that was Secretary Nguyen, I believe. We have a motion by Vice Chair Bender to approve. Kathy, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it to approve the resolution authorizing the execution of a construction management agreement between the Sports Authority and Mortensen Messer?
Yes, Madam Chair, and then I would just like for us to get on the table and we can discussion.
Okay, we have a motion properly seconded. Further discussion? Thank you.
Chair, I appreciate that. I would like to finish my questions if I may, and I'll try to be efficient about it. It's just it's just a lot of information. I mean, I've been up till midnight the last couple of nights trying to read some of the stuff and give it thoughtful consideration. So I guess what I'm hearing, the reason I asked about the numbers is because I wanted to know what the difference between 167, 192, and or if that, what the guaranteed maximum price applied, whether it applied to the public. So the short answer is, as I understand it, it's somewhere in there. We don't know, but it'll be coming back to us for approval at some point. Is that correct? It's not something that'll be, say, but that we're approving in the motion that this is authorizing determination of that somewhere, that'll come back to us.
Tom?
Yes, the guaranteed maximum price, there will be a contract amendment that establishes the guaranteed maximum price. That will come back before the authority.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my last questions are, one of the things Ms. Fox so eloquently was able to put in there is, and as she described about the issues, I guess Mr. Dominy's memo raised, I didn't get too far into that, but she raised that that the contractor, Mortensen in particular, had some issues involving bid rigging in Denver, and if that was in the process, I think she eloquently described that that was not known at the time, or it wasn't information that be considered. And my question is around that. Obviously, that information didn't come out in the press until December. So the meeting would have happened in November 1st. Some of that information wasn't even available. There's no way procurement knew about that information or could have taken it into account when they considered all of those events. And so I guess my question is now, is that germane information now that we as board members, we are aware of it? I mean, particularly it ended into some kind of agreement settling that matter. And we are aware of that now. Is that something we have since looked into or looked at, or should we consider that as we consider the award of this contract? Is that germane?
Madam Chair, this is Ron Gobble.
Yes.
May I kind of chime in here and give you a little bit of an overview of our experience with Mortensen and Messer on this project, and then I will come back to Director Farmer's question. As we've said, the building, when this project was procured, the building was not designed. There was a separate contract with an architect and engineering firm, or several firms, but it's led by Populous and Hastings locally. And the role of the construction manager is to work with the design team and others by doing cost estimating and reviewing these designs. And we went through really about 14 months of analysis, and then the construction documents were finalized in spring of this year. Based on that, we are now moving to get this GMP that Mr. Cross mentioned. We just got that submittal. We're reviewing it, and hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be able to reach a conclusion with that, and that will finalize the numbers as we have now finalized the design. During that time, we have been reviewing safety plans and other issues that Mortensen is dealing with. They've got a very robust safety program that's going on. They're beginning to solicit subcontractors and in helping to develop this GMP. Construction itself could not start until demolition was complete on the fairground site. That demolition and site preparation is being handled by a fairgrounds project. That was wound up toward the end of June, early July. So now Mortensen is in the process of setting up job trailers, fencing, erosion control, in preparation for major earthwork. They've had, in addition to the DBE outlets items that we've talked about, the DBE elements are something that's constantly discussed, but they're also doing neighborhood reach out, reaching out to the neighborhood and other areas and talking about construction traffic and excavation issues and those kind of things. And that will continue throughout the process. But we're just really getting into the hard construction process. And we really are completing the pre-construction phase that was identified in the contract that's before you. So we're in that mode. as we finalize the GMP. A lot of the data that was provided was in this package. Back to your question, Director Farmer, a lot of the information provided in this package was really provided as as newspaper articles and editorials, which is kind of anecdotal information. And anytime you hear about this with a construction contractor that you're working with, you want to explore what happened. We're just in the process of doing that. We'll be vetting that. Certainly if it would impact their licensing ability or their ability to bond issues, that might impact this project. But right now, there's no evidence that that would be the case. And I think the key is that without some kind of legal issue in that aspect of it, I'm not sure what all we can do, but we do want to explore that and find out what's going on. And we'll be happy to report back at the next board meeting if you'd like about what our findings are. But it's not uncommon for large construction companies to get in some kind of dispute in other cities. And when we hear about those, we check them out. And that's what we're trying to do. So
Thank you, Ron.
That's the non-legal version of it all.
We're definitely going to want you to keep us informed.
Excuse me, Chairman Kim Atkins, may I ask Ron, this is Melvin Gill. What is the status of this investigation now? Who is conducting the investigation and what is the status at this time?
We really just found out about these issues. So we're just kind of doing an initial indication of trying to find some facts. So I don't know that we have anybody specifically dealing with it. We're just trying to get some facts, and we'll be talking with Metro Legal and others about if we need to do anything beyond that. But that's just where we are.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Gill?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for Ron?
Yeah, I don't have one for Ron, but maybe for Tom or Ms. Fox. Have we been, has the Sports Authority or Metro Legal or Procurement or anything been monitoring that as well?
This is Tom.
Yeah.
We learned of the allegations relatively recently as well. I would observe that from a legal perspective, we haven't received anything except for notices of problems in Denver. We are not aware of anything that would have resulted in a disqualification of Mortensen Messer's proposal in this case, nor of anything having to do with that might have compromised the integrity of the proposal that led to this contract. There would not, based on what we know at this point, there would not be a basis to have disqualified them from proposing here. As Mr. Gobble said, if something were to affect their ability to retain the licenses that they need, that's going to be a different story.
Right. And go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Excuse me for interrupting. If that's the case, should this investigation be something that's moved very quickly and thoroughly?
Well, again, we don't have anything at this point to suggest that something is amiss about the procurement underlying this contract. And to date, we know that they have all the licenses they need. So it appears that, at least as far as they know, the state has not concluded that there's an issue either.
Okay. Should something develop, where would we be left standing in this instance?
If they were to lose their license, or if something were to be determined that suggests that the integrity of the RFP process in this case had been compromised, we would be back in front of this authority asking you to take some appropriate action. And it could be something as extreme as terminating the agreement. But again, at this point, we don't have any evidence at all that there's reason to suspect the integrity of this procurement process.
Yeah, Director Gill, this is Alan Kroshinsky. I might add some to the conversation here, addressing some facts of the matter to help with the explanation. So pertaining to the Denver Convention Center, I just want to be crystal clear. There is no civil or criminal action that was brought against Mortensen or any of its team members. There was no Mortensen contract terminated. Nothing, again, no criminal or civil action. And the matter is closed in Denver months ago. Now, what did occur, and what you can read about in the articles provided, there was a suspension and a revocation of our pre-qualification. And that was, as the city described in its initial proceedings, due to some inappropriate communication during a procurement process. We did appeal that when it was made, those statements were made, and there was an appeal process for such. And throughout that process, there was open communication, full cooperation with the attorney's investigations, both on the part of the city and the county and the state. And at the end of the day, the parties came to a settlement agreement, which you may also read about in those articles. But I want to be clear on some facts of that settlement. We did agree to a 2-year revocation of our pre-qualification status for the city and the county, but we remain in good standing. We have an office in Denver. Our work continues, and we will continue to enjoy good relations with the city and the county and the state going forward. There were some monetary payments made, as you're reading in the articles, but those were, again, part of the settlement agreement to discontinue an ongoing, very publicly displayed legal discussion. And at the end of the day, we did reimburse the city and the county for their legal expenses. And there was also some in-kind construction services provided. And so those are the facts, and the matter was closed in that settlement agreement months ago. So I don't want to leave the board believing that there's any further investigation to occur because the matter is simply closed.
Thank you, Alan, for clarifying the status of the other jurisdiction.
Sure.
Glenn?
Thank
Chair Atkins, I was just going to say, yeah, and I want to be just as clear that nobody's making an accusation or anything like that. These issues are important. They're important that we talk about them in a public way, and I appreciate everybody's transparency in doing so. I do want to, here's my kind of point, and the reason I ask, is this something that, you know, as we go forward in awarding a contract to the into the current bidder, no one is, and I'm certainly not suggesting, you know, that it be rebid or something like that. What I'm saying is, my question is is it material information that we did not have then that we do now as a board? There was no way that procurement knew that at the time. It came out after that. If it's something that is it material information that we now know about and that we discussed? And I think that is true. And I think the discussion we're having here is healthy on that. And here's why, because as I look through the agreement, that was the agreement, I guess, that was approved and currently has been working under and that we're looking at approving today, and it gives the strengths and weaknesses for the procurement award and clearly justifying everything. You know, for instance, Mallow Company, who had the lowest bid, had the highest amount of points on price. You know, their strengths were an MLS stadium experience in Orlando, First Tennessee Park, et cetera, strong diversity plan, as we see, and their weaknesses were limited project management, staff being proposed, and experienced challenges in closing out Orlando City projects. And my point is if it is equally if projects equally are consideration in other cities such as that, then it is something that had we known about, you know, or we do know about now, does that somehow or another, again, I'm not suggesting a rebid or anything like that. I'm just saying, does that, where does that leave us?
Alerted.
If I from a procurement perspective, you know, as you've noted, and I think you understand, the bar for us as we're receiving and reviewing offers is to determine the responsiveness and the responsibleness of the offers that are received. Again, we don't have any indication that based upon the time of the submissions that there was any consideration for non-responsibleness by the submitted offers, any of those, and until which time we are clear based on some specific legal outcome that there would be a need to reconsider that responsibleness as a contracted vendor with Metro, we would proceed as normal. I think that, you know, Tom has intimated this. You know, once we have some understanding that, you know, the licensing situation has changed, or there are some other related impacts from this issue that impact their ability to be considered an ongoing responsible contractor with Metro, then we would proceed. And I think that Ron Gobble has laid out a good process that they're using to understand on an ongoing basis what that impact would be. They would certainly communicate that to all parties, and then the appropriate action would be taken at that time.
Thank you. As we entertain this, you know, the provisions in this contract, there's various other things. Somebody mentioned the subcontracts that have been let, couple subcontracts that have been let. As I look through this agreement, for instance, there are things in there that talk about the subcontracts coming back before this board, talks about plans, you know, have all of those occurred as well? So essentially compliance with that?
Ron?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I just took a bite of a sandwich.
That's okay. Don't rub it in.
That's quite all right. Yeah, we've actually been back before the board several times. There was a limited notice to proceed to get some work started and some subcontracting done. For the most part, things that have happened so far have been submitted, and I don't have the contract right in front of me, so I'm not sure exactly what section you're looking at. But to the best of my knowledge, we've been in compliance.
Thank you, Ron.
I think I see that on, sorry, I thought I see that on Exhibit D. Another would be, you know, a safety plan. We've all read, you know, issues, and I'm just saying if the authority in our agreement with the contract, you know, requires some kind of safety plan submission, and I can't recite the exact provision in here. I want to make sure we're doing so for obvious reasons. Not that anything's amiss with it, but that compliance with that is happening as well.
Yeah. We do have a safety plan, and we've not, obviously we can't flood the board with everything, but if you'd like to see it, we can get it to you. It actually has a COVID provision in it as well.
Good point. Thank you. That'd be great.
Excellent. Okay.
Tom, I would just, the last thing I would, one last question. One thing is if there is something to that, perhaps, you know, there are articles in that agreement. If something comes about and you learn something new about that, you know, that we're able to address that in that agreement.
We will absolutely bring it to your attention.
Thank you.
One additional question, if I may. This is Melvin Gill. In light of this recent accident on a construction site in which a teenager died, has this contract been given any consideration for modification or assurance that something similar will not happen on this project?
This is Ron again. Commissioner Gill, you know, I'm not familiar other than what I read in the paper about the unfortunate accident on the hotel. I do know that we've had a very elaborate safety plan. I do know that Mortensen Messer, in all their conversations with subs, go in great detail about about the safety plan. For example, they have a early morning stretch. It's at 6:30 every morning, where everybody who's on the job site goes through a stretching exercise. They have other provisions. As you well know, it doesn't matter if the subs don't adhere. They have a safety officer on the site, and they're requiring large subs to have safety officers as well. Alan may be able to comment a little bit more on that, but it's in great detail. Again, they only got control of the site about 2 weeks ago, so we haven't gotten to any of the steel erection and other issues, but I've been very impressed so far with the quality of their safety program.
Madam Chair, this is Alan again. If you would like, I can certainly add to the conversation here as regards our safety program.
Briefly, please.
Our safety programs often exceed requirements of OSHA and state and local requirements. And safety isn't just a requirement for us. It's not just a matter of compliance. It's a company value shared by both Messer and Mortensen, corporate cultures. We really believe that everyone should be going home in the same or better condition than in which they arrived that morning. And accidents change lives. And in the instance of the teenager several months ago, it ends lives. And we believe wholeheartedly every accident is preventable. We provide appropriate resources and training with the intent to eliminate those workplace injuries. We saturate the project, as Ron was describing, with resources that are experts in safety, that are providing training to folks so they know how to use the tools and the equipment that they're provided. We saturate the project with supervision. Safety performance is a factor when awarding our subcontractors. So every bit of focus on inclusion and diversity, we also apply that amount of rigor in the safety performance of the team of contractors that we're building. So that everybody is focused on safety, and we ensure that safety culture is established on the project from the beginning.
Thank you, Alan. Do we have further questions by the board? I think we have a motion and seconded to approve the resolution. But before we take a vote, I want to make sure if there's any further discussion that we address it. Director Deering?
What?
Yes.
This is
Director
Melvin.
Gill?
Yes, this is Melvin Gill. Has Ron finished his presentation for this meeting?
I think so. I didn't do it in the order I intended. Again, our experience with Mortenson has been good. They're very professional. Their staff is meticulous and detailed. And we've had, we're getting ready to really get started building. And so we're looking forward to it. But I'm checking my notes. I don't think I've missed anything. And then coming forward, if the board would like, we can do a little bit more formal presentation as we have something to show as work is beginning.
Absolutely.
And we'll be setting up. We'll be setting up a report structure, so we'll have something to show. And again, hopefully by the next board meeting's a month away. Hopefully we'll be showing some dirt being removed, and then they'll start going vertical sometime in the fall.
Okay, what will your role be in construction administration?
This is a complicated one. There are 3 project management firms involved in this project. The CAA Icon is hired by the team and is primarily responsible for the day-to-day project management, and then the Sports Authority has hired 2 firms. Our firm, which will stay involved, but our role will begin to cut back as it goes under construction. And CPS is the project management firm, and their role will increase. They've been involved from the beginning as well, but they'll be primarily involved in the construction process. As Tom mentioned, we're representing the city and making sure that we're getting a quality building that's maintainable, and then working with hand in glove with Icon on getting things moving and keeping them moving, and CPS is involved really with the compliance side, and then when it goes under construction. So, Melvin, did that answer your question, or did I get?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions for Ron or others as it relates to this agenda item? Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Bender, seconded by Secretary Nguyen. I will go through and address the remaining board members as to how they would vote. And just to clarify, we are voting on a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction management agreement between the Sports Authority and Mortensen Messer. Director Deering? Colonel Deering, are you still on?
Yes.
Yes, you are on, and or yes?
Yes on the motion.
Okay, thank you for both yeses.
I'm sorry, thank you.
No worries, it's challenging in this virtual environment. Director Farner?
Aye.
Director Gill?
Yes.
Director Glassmeyer?
Yes.
Director Harrison? Councilman Harrison, can you unmute yourself for a vote?
Chairwoman Atkins, Director Harrison just called me. He had difficulty. He got kicked out of the meeting. He's trying to join again by audio call.
Okay, we can go back to him and we'll proceed. I think we lost Director Hogan. Is Director McGee on? He was on earlier, but I don't think he is with us. Director Page? Director Nguyen?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you made the motion, so is Director Harrison back on? I want to give him an opportunity to vote. And also the same for Director Page. I know she's had technical difficulties. I think according, and Vice Chair Bender, it was your motion, but I think you still need to vote.
Aye.
Okay, so then we have I've not heard from Director Page. Alicia, do we need to wait for Frank?
I believe so, or we can try to get his roll call when he gets back on.
Okay, I think that's, according to my math, I think that's 6 votes in the affirmative. I'll also vote, making it 7. And if Director Harrison is able to join us, Darby, is that appropriate to go back to his vote when he gets in there? I want to make sure procedurally.
I think that you have sufficient votes at the time.
Okay.
At the time that this vote's being made.
Okay. Majority passes the resolution, and we are on to our next. I think that closes out November 1st, 2018 agenda items, and we are now to consideration of approval of a resolution authorizing the execution of the lease, team lease, ground lease, the development agreement, the construction administration agreement, and recordation, non-disclosure, and attornment agreement related to Major League Soccer Stadium. Tom, I believe Tom Cross provided a summary of the agreements and changes to the original documents. And I'd like to ask Tom to walk us through his summary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. These agreements have all been before the board before as well, but they're back in front of you this time for a different reason, not because anything has been found amiss with the previous approvals, but because there have been some changes, most significantly stemming from some negotiations between the team and the mayor that resulted in changes that are favorable to Metro and the authority. I'd like to go through the agreements one at a time. There are 5 of them, and I hope that this is an order that makes sense. The first one is a development agreement, which commits the authority to build the stadium.
Hey, Tom, just real quick, for the board's purpose for review materials, this is under item 8 on the SharePoint. I know we've got it up on the screen, but also wanted to make sure the board had an opportunity to look at it as you go through it. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's helpful to me as well. So the development agreement is an agreement between the authority and the team that commits the authority to building the stadium under certain conditions. Again, this agreement was previously approved, but it has been changed to reflect a few amendments. One is revisions to the project dates. Obviously, we're a year downrange from when these were first approved. Also, the development agreement has provisions in it that address environmental assessment of the site, and all of the assessment work has been done. And I'm happy to report that very few environmental issues of any kind were discovered. Another change to the development agreement from when it was first approved is the description of how the property is to be turned over for construction has been updated so that instead of a term that wasn't as clear as it should have been, pad ready was the term. It has been updated to say essentially that the site will be scraped of existing buildings and turned over in that condition. By the way, the buildings have been removed, as Mr. Gobble mentioned. And also the team has assumed some responsibility for stadium-related infrastructure costs and parking facility costs on a site adjacent to the stadium parcel. That's part of the mayor's negotiation. And then finally, one more change to this document has to do with a pending lawsuit, not the one that Ms. Fox mentioned earlier, but a different one that challenges whether construction of a stadium in use for this purpose is compliant with the Metro Charter. So there's a provision in the development agreement that addresses what the parties are to do depending on the outcome of that case. The second agreement is a construction administration agreement, and in this agreement, the authority engages the team to provide most of the oversight of design and construction of the project. This was the same mechanism that was used for construction of the Atlanta Braves facility in Cobb County, Georgia recently. Third agreement is a stadium ground lease. The property where the stadium is going to be built is of course owned by the Fair Board, and the Fair Board in this document provides a ground lease to the authority on which the stadium property can be built. The change to this document just has to do with clarifying the description of the leased property and also revisions to the project dates. An exhibit to that agreement is this recognition, non-disturbance, and attornment agreement. There really haven't been any significant changes to this document. This protects the team in the event that the stadium ground lease were to be terminated. The Fair Board would step into the shoes of the authority on the main team lease for the use of the stadium. So this document has been changed to reflect revised project dates. Finally, the main document, which will be the most important one going forward after construction is complete, is the operating lease. And in this document, the Sports Authority leases the stadium to the team. This lease has been modified to reflect clarifications to the description of the property that's being leased, revised project dates, and most importantly, and again, this is another item that the team and the mayor negotiated. In the original lease, there was a provision that required Metro to make up deficits in sales and ticket tax collections, which offset team rent. That has been removed so that now there's no minimum guarantee. The rent to be paid is equivalent to the bond payments that are due. There is some of that is to come from sales and ticket tax collections, but there is no minimum guaranteed by Metro. So those are the documents in front of you. any changes that have been made since they were first approved. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any questions by the board regarding Tom's overview? Do we still have board members on?
Yes.
All right, that's a start. Good. Thanks everyone for hanging in there. I know this has been a long meeting, but it's certainly important to go through. There's been a lot of moving parts, so thank you so much. Director Gill, do you have a question?
No, but I think Frank Harrison was back on.
Oh, good.
I thought I saw his hand just now.
Excellent.
Hi, this is Amber Quisenberry. I'm noticing Frank mute and unmute himself via the WebEx mechanism, but I'm wondering if the reason why we cannot hear him is that perhaps he has also double muted himself using his computer by any chance, like a keyboard or something along those lines.
Thanks, Amber. Frank? We'll give Frank a moment to try and unmute himself. If there are no questions for Tom, would the chair would entertain a motion that the board approve the resolution authorizing the execution of the team lease, ground lease, development agreement, construction administration agreement, and recordation, non-disclosure, and attornment agreement.
I'll make the motion, John Glassmeyer.
I'll second Melvin Gill.
Okay, we have a motion and properly seconded. Any further discussion? We're ready to take a vote. Vice Chair Bender? Director Deering?
Aye.
Director Farner? Glenn? It says that Glenn's on too, so let's see if Kathy, Kathy's still on. Kathy?
Aye.
Director Gill?
Yes.
Director Gill?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Glassmeyer?
Yes.
Director Harrison? Director Farner back with us? Is Director McGee with us? If so, how do you vote? I think we lost Aaron. Director Page?
Chairwoman Atkins, I have Director Page on speaker right now. She was having an issue with the microphone this entire meeting. Ms. Page, go ahead.
Yes.
Director Page is a yes. Secretary Nguyen? He's still on.
Aye.
Glenn, are you available to vote? And then what about Councilman Harrison?
I'm sorry.
Did we get your vote recorded? I'm sorry.
I'm just making sure.
Oh, that's Emmett. Do we have Councilman Harrison, Director Harrison on?
This is Melvin Gill, and I have him on speaker. He's saying yes. Could you hear that?
Yes, we hear him. Thank you for helping us with our technology. And I think that's everyone that's still present. I will also vote in the affirmative. So that's.
Chair,
yes, there you are. I think
I just stepped out to the restroom. Sorry.
That's okay. We were trying to. Excellent. Okay, and Director Farner, motion passes, and we are to our last agenda item, facility question. And thank you to all of our facility and team representatives, Metro Legal, project managers, and everyone for participating today. It's been a lengthy but very informative board meeting, and thank you so much. If there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move for adjourn.
We are adjourned. Keep well. Thank you, everyone.
Great meeting, everyone. Be safe.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.